Now, under new Scottish Government proposals, women who paid to have medical mesh implants removed privately will be reimbursed for the cost of the surgery.
This new bill would see the government pay the cost of each procedure, which is estimated to be between £16,000 and £23,000.
The use of the controversial implants was stopped in Scotland in 2018.
It came after thousands of women were left with painful, life-changing side effects. But what about the women who are still suffering from these implants?
Joining us now is Paula Goss from Rectopexy Mesh Victims and Support Group in Bristol. Paula, forgive me for my pronunciation. You get it right for me, so it's the least I can do.
That's okay, no problem at all.
Okay. Paula, I've read a lot about this, but you know, I don't feel like I really understand it. So I was so looking forward to talking to you. Would you like to describe in your words, because you are, I don't know if you like the word victim, but you have suffered through vaginal mesh and you have become a campaigner. So tell us your story, if you would, to start with.
Right, okay. And it's not just vaginal mesh, unfortunately. I was given rectopexy bowel mesh and vaginal mesh. The rectopexy mesh has actually got one of the worst complications, as has hernia mesh, which doesn't get recognised either. Our meshes haven't got a pause on them. It's only vaginal mesh that have got a pause on them. My support group that I run in Bristol is not just for Bristol, it's UK wide. We've got rectopexy and hernia and vaginal mesh injured, as I like to call them, on my group. They have nowhere to go. The vaginal mesh centres that they opened on the 1st of April, they call them pelvic centres, but rectopexy's pelvic, we're not welcome at the moment, nor a hernia mesh injured. So it's quite a journey for them all. I was suffered myself, but I do this because other people need support in the campaign, and you know, all credit to the Scottish groups and the ladies that have managed to get the government to look at this. Our government, sadly, at the moment, are very lacking in what they see. They don't see the men that are injured. Their argument is that there's not many complaints from men. Well, men won't complain about their health, will they? So, you know, it's a massive issue. It's a UK-wide and global issue.
It's my understanding, Paula, that vaginal mesh is used after women have given birth to prevent uterus prolapse, dangers of that, to treat issues, complications postnatal, such as incontinence. But then the mesh itself has had really bad side effects and done internal injuries. Is that correct? I'm struggling to really understand here.
Yeah, it's not just the mesh. The mesh itself, depending on the types, because you've got some that are polypropylene and some that are biological meshes, but they all are a foreign body, and people are going to react in different ways. With the sacrocolpopexy, which I had, which is a vaginal mesh, and the rectopexy, they are secured by titanium protacs. So those in themselves can cause issues too. Yes, the mesh can break, migrate, stick to other organs, and a lot of the rectopexy and even hernia mesh injured have ended up with permanent stomas due to what's happened to them. It's not a very good, viable product for people going forward. The old-fashioned ways with the stitching and things may not have been ideal, but the mesh certainly isn't ideal.
And when and how do you know that something is wrong after you've had these implants?
Well, there's another story. I was told it was all in my head. It was menopause or something else. They don't like to initially go down the route of thinking it's the mesh. For me, eventually I ended up with a blocked bowel and bladder, so they had to look at something. There was obviously a reason for it. And I did have an erosion of the mesh, and the erosion of the mesh in itself can be very, very dangerous.
Now, there are several hundred women in Scotland who may become entitled to compensation because they've privately paid to have the cost of the surgery removing meshes reimbursed. So obviously quite a lot of these meshes were implanted. Is there always a danger are the meshes sometimes successful? Anyone who's watching who's had a mesh implant, man or woman, as you say, should they be worried if they feel fine and it seems to be doing its job? What's the evidence from across the UK and the rest of the world?
It's a difficult one. I know people that have vaginal mesh implants and have no problem with them, but they are aware and mindful, because of our group, of what can happen to them. It's a difficult one. Everybody's different and everybody's body is different, so people are going to react differently to it. Some people who have it swear by it and it's worked for them. With regards to the meshes that we had, the Rectopexy meshes, they don't always show straight away with problems. It can be years down the line that people can end up with complications from them.
And when there is a need for a mesh implant, why is it done privately? So how does the NHS support people who need help?
Well, they're not all done privately. Mine was done on the NHS when mine was inserted, as were a lot of people's. Some people paid privately. Perhaps they thought they were getting something more than what we were getting, I don't know. With regards to removal, that's a whole nother story. I had to seek private removal because I wasn't given the option from the NHS. My options were to leave the mesh in place and give me a permanent stoma, so I sought a second opinion. But not everybody can go down that road. So there needs to be a proper healthcare pathway for vaginal, rectopexy and hernia mesh injured patients who've got complications. And I really wish that the NHS and the government would actually talk to us that are know firsthand what has happened to these people, because we've been the victims of them ourselves and we get the complications, but we also advocate and campaign for so many hundreds and thousands of people.
I must say, Paula, typical bloke, before I read about this story this morning and started discussing it with Gloria and other women in the newsroom, this was completely, I had no idea of this procedure. It turns out, who knew, 100,000 women across the UK have had this procedure. It's big. And if there is going to be compensation paid to women who privately had surgery to remove a mesh because it simply wasn't working and was causing them pain and anguish, and if that spreads, then surely the whole of the UK government is going to have to start giving compensation. It could amount to quite a lot of cash.
It could, definitely. But it's not just women. It's not just women. There are so many men that are suffering, and I really wish that they would listen to that. Because men will not come forward on their own. It's just that men are strong. Men don't want to talk about their bottoms and things like that. So, you know, this really is a big, big issue. It is bigger than what anybody realises. Has it ended up in the courts?
I mean, have people who have had mesh who have been harmed as a result of that implant, have they gone to court to sue?
I think there is litigation ongoing, yes. How successful they're going to be, we don't know, because a lot of them sign agreements and so they can't tell you how they get on. So there's very few public ones that you can Google and find where they've actually received some compensation, but they're very few and far between. And we shouldn't have to fight to get compensation. And it's not just about the money either. There needs to be healthcare plans in place for these people, because a lot of them have lost their jobs, their marriages, their homes. They're disabled by a lot of these implants, and they're not getting any help from anywhere. You're in Bristol,
Paula. It's the Scottish Government that's taken this initiative. This was a SNP manifesto pledge. Hamza Youssef, the Scottish Health Minister, is saying that this should be on the Scottish statute book by next year. How's the London government responded? How has the UK-wide government responded to the lobbying of you, your support group, and other people who are associated with what's clearly a sort of big medical negligence case happening here? You get little tidbits of information from the government where they sort of come back a bit. I mean, the Cumberledge Review is
is ongoing, but even with some of those recommendations, you're not getting what the Baroness recommendations have been given. The government are not actually going to fulfil a lot of those, or they're going to just pay lip service. It really is a scandal within a scandal, and all of us campaign groups are fighting hard towards our government, but they're just clearly not listening. And it's the reason why getting on shows like yours and others to get the message out there is so important, because there's so many people suffering.
And Paula, you're clearly, you know, a strong person. You're an extremely articulate campaigner, if I may say so. But I'm sure some viewers will be wondering how you are now. How's your health now?
Well, that's a difficult one, really. I'm okay, is all I can say. Yes, I am quite a strong person. I'm okay. We all have our good days and bad days, but I like to focus on helping others. My health can sort of come by the wayside. I can sort myself out. So, you know.
Well, good on you, Paula Goss. I'm sure many people watching, their hearts going out to you, not just with that answer, but your interview and your campaign. All the very best to you, and keep in touch with us here on GB News, and let us know if you're getting any joy with providing compensation for victims of this medical negligence case beyond Scotland. Paula Goss there, the Rectopexy mesh victim support.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paula.